Last week in Michigan politics, the state Republican Party choosing who they're endorsing for key statewide races. This year's all-important midterms. Which candidates got the nod? Plus, a flurry of moves out of the governor's office on top state issues. What came from her desk this week? And a new tax on marijuana in our state is just months old and already facing another legal challenge. Why some are arguing the new law meant to help fund the roads is unconstitutional. I'm Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on your side rundown. And we begin with a new rate hike that's set to come from one of the state's major utilities, Consumers Energy. It comes amid recent controversy over the actions of the state panel that approved the increase and how that panel operates.
Aye.
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 A unanimous vote opening the door to higher electric costs for many Michigan customers. On Friday, the Michigan Public Service Commission approving a new rate hike for Consumers Energy, totaling over $200 million new dollars and set to take effect on May 1st.
I believe that the order in whole represents a balanced order that provides meaningful support for ongoing reliability-based investments, while being mindful of the affordability concerns that are always front and center.
The increase, the commission said, would support the utility's reliability efforts. Consumers saying it paves the way for their 2026 Reliability Action Plan, with actions including
installing taller and stronger electric poles and increasing the monitoring of our electric grid so that if a power outage does happen, we're aware of it and we're able to reduce the impact.
Electric reliability has been a top issue in Michigan for some time. A report out last fall from the Citizens Utility Board of Michigan said that while the price of electricity in the residential sector was much higher in some other states, Michigan fell behind every other state and D.C. when it came to average power restoration time. But in aiming to make the system more reliable, how much is Consumers' increase expected to cost customers?
It'll be about a $9 increase for the average customer, which would make the average electric bill in Michigan for our customers about $140.
While much less than was originally requested, the latest increase still came with skepticism.
The record in this case reflects consumers' substantial investment proposals, but also significant concerns from interveners that not all spending is sufficiently tied to measurable outcomes or justified on a cost-to-benefit basis.
The state's attorney general saying in a statement in part, quote, Consumers Energy customers will once again have to brace for higher bills because of the never-ending cycle of rate hikes passed on by the utility. Unfortunately, this is something we have become accustomed to. Responding to skepticism, the consumer spokesperson we talked to pointed to what she said were the company's energy waste reduction programs and helping customers only use what they need. But utility rates are just one concern that have had some calling for a restructuring of the MPSC and how members are chosen. You can find more on that story up on our website right now, 13onyourside.com. Now to your voice, your vote. Delegates to the Michigan Republican Party's endorsement convention last weekend in Novi have chosen who the party will back for key statewide races in November. For Secretary of State, delegates voted to endorse Macomb County Clerk Anthony Forlini, who has been facing candidates including Clarkston School Board member Amanda Love and businesswoman and activist Monica Yatuma. For Attorney General, the party endorsed Eaton County Prosecuting Attorney Doug Lloyd over defense attorney Kevin Kajewski. Candidates were also endorsed for state judicial and educational seats, including the Michigan Supreme Court, the Michigan Board of Education, the University of Michigan Board of Regents, the Michigan State University Board of Trustees, and the Wayne State University Board of Governors. Last Saturday's convention comes ahead of the party's official nominating convention expected later this year. The Michigan Democratic Party's endorsement convention is set for mid-April. A new 24% wholesale tax on marijuana in Michigan to help fund the roads is facing yet another challenge in court. But this one is different from the first lawsuit that was filed late last year and that we're told is still ongoing. We spoke with a group filing the new suit and have a look at what it claims.
This 24% tax does not add up.
It's back to the courts for those aiming to overturn a controversial new cost for the cannabis industry in Michigan.
This is a tax on tax ploy that is resulting in consumers getting hit with an effective sales tax rate that is higher than what's legal.
Months after a new 24% wholesale tax on marijuana took effect in January, the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association filing a second lawsuit aimed at striking it down.
This lawsuit focuses on the tax structure itself. In 2025, Michigan Cannabis Industry Association filed a lawsuit that focuses on the constitutional process through which that 24% tax was established.
The newest lawsuit includes three main arguments: that the tax is a, quote, disguised sales tax, that it, quote, results in an effective tax rate beyond the constitutionally allowable 6% sales tax rate, and that the law that created the tax, quote, violates the equal protection clauses of the U.S. and Michigan constitutions.
The way this tax is structured, it means that cannabis is taxed multiple times, resulting in something called tax pyramiding. The state of Michigan can call this a wholesale tax, but effectively, this acts as a sales tax on Michigan consumers.
Lawmakers passing the tax as part of last year's state budget deal, hoping to generate hundreds of millions of dollars for road funding while balancing the health of the industry. But since passed, backlash toward the tax has continued in lawsuits and even another bill to repeal it. Many have feared the potential end result on sales and jobs.
There's a lot of small growers and processors that are just barely hanging on.
Some processors and growers are anticipating a downturn and a less profitable 2026.
The state Treasury Department was named as the defendant in this lawsuit. When we reached out for comment on Tuesday, we were told that Treasury had no comment to share at that time. The U.S. Supreme Court this week ruled against a Colorado ban on so-called conversion therapy. But that doesn't mean the case is over. So what exactly did the court decide, and how could it impact Michigan's own ban? We verify. Tuesday's opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court against a Colorado ban on conversion therapy for minors, which seeks to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity, sent shockwaves around the country. Those could soon reach Michigan and its own ban on conversion therapy for minors that took effect 2 years ago. So what did the Supreme Court decide, and what happens to Michigan's ban?
I think a lot of the immediate headlines really got it wrong or gave a misinterpretation.
Let's verify. First, let's start with the Supreme Court's decision from this week. In its 8-1 decision, the majority did not do away with the Colorado ban altogether.
What the Supreme Court said is that the lower courts were wrong to not apply very strict scrutiny to Colorado's ban.
So what they did do, because they found that free speech concerns came into play, was send it back to the lower court and say that a very strict level of scrutiny needs to be applied to the case.
They said, if we limit a certain speech viewpoint over another, that's viewpoint discrimination. And so Colorado, the 10th Circuit Court here, needs to decide whether Colorado's law is viewpoint discrimination.
Here in Michigan, the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals temporarily blocked the enforcement of the state's ban back in December, ruling that the law does restrict speech in the case of the plaintiffs and that the law might be unconstitutional. The definition of conversion therapy under Michigan law uses a lot of similar language to the definition in Colorado. One judge's dissent in the 6th Circuit calling the Colorado ban materially indistinguishable from Michigan's law and saying that the Colorado case would control the outcome in Michigan's case.
Michigan would have to show that the law as it's currently constituted is the best and only way, right? So that's what narrowly tailored means, to achieve something compelling, which means like saving life.
What we can verify is that the Colorado case is not yet over, and how the courts may apply it to Michigan's ban is in their hands. With gas prices continuing to hover around $4 in most of Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is hoping to reduce the pain at the pump with an executive order. We have the details next. An update now on those deadly tornadoes in southwest Michigan last month. Governor Gretchen Whitmer is asking President Donald Trump to formally declare a major disaster. Those storms killed 4 people and tore a path of destruction through 3 counties. Some of the most significant damage was seen near Edwardsburg, Three Rivers, and Union City. Before this, Whitmer declared a state of emergency on the state level, but she says the help she's asking for from the federal government will help those communities recover. The governor also wants the Individual Assistance Program activated. According to the governor's office, that could include grants for temporary housing and home repairs, low-interest loans for uninsured property losses, and access to other federal recovery programs. The governor this week also signing an executive order aimed at easing pain at the pump. The order declares a state of energy emergency and eases regulations on fuel, making higher vapor pressure gas more widely available. It's normally sold during cold months and tends to be less expensive. Usually, sales of the blend are banned in some areas of the state during the summer due to pollution concerns. The order only directly applies to 8 counties in southeast Michigan. The suspended regulations aren't present in the other counties of the state. The governor also signed an executive directive asking multiple Michigan agencies to deliver reports on the possible ongoing state-level impacts of tariffs. The order came on the one-year anniversary of what the president had called Liberation Day, when he announced sweeping tariffs on imports from countries across the globe. A recent Supreme Court decision found some of those tariffs unconstitutional. Whitmer's directive also asks that certain state agencies assist Michigan businesses and employers in seeking refunds. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services lowered the recommended age of vaccination for measles in several counties following an outbreak of 8 cases. The vaccine for measles, mumps, and rubella is routinely recommended for infants between the ages of 12 and 15 months. The health department has lowered that recommendation for infants between the ages of 6 to 11 months for people in Washtenaw, Monroe, Wayne, Oakland, Jackson, Livingston, or Lenawee counties. The health department has confirmed 7 measles cases in Washtenaw County and 1 in Monroe County. The lowered recommended age will be in effect until May 16th. The second defendant in a 2022 scheme to collect forged election signatures was sentenced last week. Willie Reed of Florida was sentenced to up to 20 years in prison after a jury convicted him of knowingly defrauding multiple gubernatorial candidates. They had used his services to collect signatures to get on the 2022 ballot. Campaigns paid Reed nearly $350,000 for valid signature collection services, according to Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. Co-defendant Sean Wilmoth of Warren was sentenced to up to 20 years in prison for his involvement in the scheme on March 18th. Reed has been ordered to pay over $300,000 in restitution. The new month brings new owners to a West Michigan Fire Department. Coming up, a look at how a local fire service controversy is now solved and what happens next to keep the communities it serves safe. April 1st marked the first day of new ownership for the Sand Lake Fire Department. After months of conflict, Nelson Township now owns that department, keeping the name and its staff while providing service to all the communities it originally served. 13 on your side's Nick Nelson has a look at how the new department will be operated.
We still have the same firefighters, we still have the same equipment, we still have the same building. It's a Sand Lake Fire Department. The only thing has changed is we've changed administrations.
Despite prolonged conflict and what newly appointed Sand Lake Village President Dan Hula calls bad blood, he's happy that on the day 3 area townships were set to lose coverage from Sand Lake, the fire department remains operational under the ownership of Nelson Township, also serving Ensley and Pearson Townships. However, before the sale was announced 5 days ago, Pearson Township contracted with Howard City to provide gap coverage. Township Clerk Sarah Burkholder says that contract is still in effect until details are worked out.
Right now, we don't have a contract because, this has only been a couple days that they've owned a department, and we've been waiting for legal to work on our group of the 3 townships to get some arrangement together with some equity and some other things.
Nelson Township is also set to vote on a millage increase on May 5th to fund the new department.
I think that's what started this whole mess. The millage is needed for the fire department. whether it was managed by Sand Lake or whether it was managed by Nelson.
Burkholder says Pearson Township may also see a millage vote sometime down the line to fund equity in the department.
We're going to kind of, when we see some numbers, gauge whether or not we need to do any kind of millage, but likely it will be a special assessment that will just be assessed as we need. But we plan on doing some serious fundraising.
That funding includes t-shirt sales and a food truck rally that Burkholder and others are continuing to plan.
The majority of those firefighters are Pearson and Ensley firefighters. So, it's really great that we're able to continue this.
Nelson Township voters are also voting on whether to disincorporate the village of Sand Lake on May 5th. The state of Michigan will provide a large grant to help with the current redevelopment in Grand Rapids' Boston Square neighborhood. Construction began in January on a 4-story residential building. It will include 45 apartments and retail space on the ground level. The state is giving the project a $1.3 million grant to help with construction costs. This is part of a bigger plan in Boston Square to create more housing and business opportunities. And construction on a large state-approved housing and commercial development in Grand Rapids will also begin soon. Groundbreaking for the Factory Yards project on Southwest Side is scheduled for this month. Major funding for the mixed-use project came through a transformational brownfield plan valued at over $100 million. The project aims to add more than 450 apartments to a former industrial area of the city on Godfrey Avenue Southwest. This was one of the first developments to take advantage of legislation signed by the governor in 2023 that set up the Transformational Brownfield Fund to help support the conversion of vacant land and abandoned property into housing and other productive spaces. The downtown Grand Rapids Social District is now bigger. Last week, the City Commission approved the expansion to include areas around the new Acrisure Amphitheater. It now includes Market Avenue from Fulton to the railroad tracks, the River Edge Trail next to the amphitheater, and several other streets. The expansion means that people can buy alcohol to go from a business in the social zone and drink it on the sidewalks near the amphitheater. The amphitheater's first concert is on May 15th. As the U.S. marks 250 years of declared independence, a local museum is marking the occasion with help from the state and telling local stories of we the people. And it has a surprising story about the Declaration of Independence. What that is, just ahead. Historians are working to tell the local stories of we the people as we get ready to mark America's 250 years of declared independence. One of those projects is in Holland. A new feature at the local museum was done through a state grant program aimed at preserving and telling Michigan's history this year. The museum looking at the history of multiple communities who traveled to Holland and helped make it what it is today. A trip to Holland is a journey into the heritage and history of this West Michigan town. A history being upheld by those like the local museum director.
I wanted to be around real things that tell stories and work to help people understand those stories.
And as the United States marks 250 years, the voices of Holland are front and center here.
We recognize, as part of this exhibit, that all communities in America, and Holland and Zeeland are no different. We are made up of a lot of voices and a lot of different communities.
The Holland Museum partnering with the nearby Zeeland Historical Society, earning $25,000 in grant money to mark the milestone and tell the local stories of we the people.
A whole case dedicated to the Mexican community here in Holland and immigration, African-American migration to Holland. This is a handmade Mexican dress that's in the collection of the Holland Museum. And this is a traditional Cambodian dress.
Exploring the histories of multiple communities and those who came to the area and eventually called it home.
So you can see we're already getting so many different pins where people are marking where their family came from.
But while Zeeland's exhibit handles much of the area's native and Dutch roots, Holland also diving into how the two nations have more in common than you may think.
In 1581, they sent the representatives of the different provinces in the Netherlands sent a document to King Philip basically declaring that they wanted to be their own country. So it's just interesting something as we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence to explore another document that actually had an impact on our declaration.
While telling everyone's story is something we're told they continue to work toward, I was told they hope people walk away learning about the communities who have made up the place they live. And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com.